where does Florida State rank as a program? Not just as a team. I think we'd all agree that Florida State ranks as the best team right now in the ACC until they're dethroned. But where as a program do they currently sit within the conference? A couple of weeks ago, we gave Josh Pate some love, and a bunch of you freaked out in the comments and said you'd never listen to anything that he had to say due to the fact that he said he would do an entire show if Florida State got snubbed, and Florida State got snubbed, and he never did that. So, Pate, we're waiting on you to maybe do that show that you didn't do. But I will say, he went to FSU's defense, and I know that you guys didn't love the way he did it because he said he understood, but it seems like he's slowly working his way back into FSU's good graces. He recently ranked ACC programs and had some interesting things to point out or take away. First of all, his ranking of number 1 and number 2 in the order that they were in surprised me a bit. But where he had Miami is something that I want to get to in just a moment as well, so stick around. Here's what he ultimately said about the number 1 team in the ACC.
Florida State University is the best program in the ACC right now. And here's what I'm taking into account. I care about the last 3 years of on-field production, talent acquisition. I care about your stability. These are the things I care about, along with your resource pool. That's the difference in a team and a program. So I got Florida State number 1. They are 23-4 past couple of seasons, back-to-back double-digit win seasons. They're the only team in the ACC that can say that. They got 3 top 20 classes in the last 3 years. They are number 1 in the ACC in portal classes the last 3 years. And Mike Norvell just got himself locked in long-term. They have a max stability rating. Florida State, for the first time in a long time, ascends to the top of the ACC program power rankings. Notre Dame, or not Notre Dame because they choose not to join the conference. Florida State's now the number 1 program in the ACC. It's been Clemson forever. Got Clemson at number 2 right now. We had 5 tiers total in the ACC, but I think the big thing to note is number 1, Florida State, in my opinion, is now the best program in the ACC. We have not said that about anyone other than Clemson in a while.
Now, Pate spoke about Clemson and why he had them ranked at number 2, and a lot of his thoughts there were basically just very vanilla. Didn't go into as much as maybe Clemson fans would have wanted to hear, maybe Florida State fans would have wanted to hear about why he had Florida State ahead of them. But I'll tell you what he can't tell you or refused to or didn't say, because I think he tries not to just absolutely dog programs, but there are real issues with Clemson right now, and we'll take a look at what the inverse of these is with Florida State in just a moment. But number 1, longevity. Tyler from Spartanburg may have turned around the Clemson Tigers season, or it may have just been the fact that they played a bunch of okay to bad teams down the stretch, but he wasn't the only one feeling that frustration earlier in the year with the way that things were going in Clemson. A lot of Clemson fans certainly felt that way, and while I appreciate very much what Dabo has done for that program and building it, I also think that they have some very valid concerns, and you wonder how much Dabo is going to be successful with his refusal to use the portal, with this strategy of we're going to do things the old way. I am going to be stubborn, and I am not going to move off of this. You've seen his program certainly take a bit of a decline. Certainly isn't doing what it was back when they were elite. I don't know that I would consider Clemson an elite program anymore. Certainly 5-6 years ago, you would say that they are, but not anymore. They've got QB issues. They haven't had a good quarterback since that stretch of Taj Boyd, Deshaun Watson, and then Trevor Lawrence. They struggled with Uiagalelei there, and now Klubnik. They've lost some coordinators. They've lost some offensive minds, and that seems to be pushing a lot of the struggle at quarterback. You saw Uiagalelei leave and do a lot better, and then obviously now he's in Tallahassee. Contrast that with FSU. Longevity. Mike Norvell is not going anywhere anytime soon, and I'm not necessarily saying that Dabo is on his way out or anything like that. But when you look at the decline that they're on and you compare it to what Florida State's doing and you look at the upward trend that the Seminoles seem to be on, there is a stark contrast there. The quarterback position at Florida State is very solidified with Uiagalelei there, and then a 5-star in Cromahawk behind him, and then an ACC champion in Brock Glenn in that room as well. Dabo's best days are likely behind him, And that's nothing to scoff at. A man won 2 national titles in short order, but it's hard to see a lot of those elite coaches or any coaches really get that mojo back once it feels like it's past them. Mike's best days seem to still be ahead of him, and most in the college football world would agree with that. However, Clemson has won more games over the last 3 years and has recruited better than the Seminoles, but Pate still had Florida State ahead. Now, if you take out that first half of 2021, then obviously things get a lot closer. If you're not looking at a 0-4 start by the Seminoles, then the records look very similar. But if you look toward the future and not just the past, Florida State seems like they are about to steamroll past Clemson, kind of like Clemson did in 2015 and 16 and 17 and 18 and really every year up until this last year. The Seminoles know what a decline looks like. They saw that you can still be winning a lot of games, but have a lot of cracks in the foundation. And they learned that under none other than Jimbo Fisher in the latter half and the latter days of his tenure. And I'm not necessarily saying that Dabo is about to do that, but they certainly wouldn't surprise anyone if they did. Florida State being ahead of Clemson happens for several reasons. Though Clemson's won more games than them and recruited better, I just think that when you look at the future and when you look at what both teams are likely going to do over the next 3 or 4 or 5 years, it certainly seems like Florida State's set up to do much bigger and better things. Okay, now I want to get on to Miami, but just before I show you that clip, let me give a little bit of love to Rohan Law. Some of you guys have been following Doug Rohan at Rohan Law over on Twitter. He's been all over this FSU ACC litigation and has helped explain this process in very simple terms. If you haven't done so yet, follow his social media accounts on any platform that you use regularly at Rohan Law. They are based in Atlanta, and he wants to make sure that he is your best friend on your worst day. If you've been arrested or hurt at work, his team is ready to help. You can call Rohan Law for your free consultation today. Make sure that you let them know that Double Fries No Slaw sent you. You can also check out the links in the description for his social media and his videos that we've done on the ACC if you haven't seen them yet, though I'm sure most of you have because I know those are hot videos when they drop. I appreciate Rohan Law for all that they do for our channel. Okay, back to Miami and what Pate had to say about them. I'll show you that. I'll share some thoughts, and then we'll get out of here.
I got Miami as number 4. Now, this is a classic balance of they're sky high in one of our metrics we care about, and that's talent acquisition, but the on-field product's not there yet. They believe it will be this fall, but this doesn't take that into account. This isn't a projection. This is a gauge of the here and now. They've got back-to-back top 10 classes, back-to-back top 12 in the portal. They're the overall best talent acquisition program in the conference right now. Looking this year, 9.5 is the over-under win total for them. But right now, until they get it done on the field, can't have them any higher than 4th. And the other thing is, you got NC State, Miami there with noticeable flaws right now. But because of how open the ACC is, you can be a flawed program. Like Miami, they just barely were above 500 last year.
Here's what's most interesting to me about Miami is he's got them ranked 4th in the ACC, and I don't have a super big hot take on they should be way higher or way lower, whatever. I think that that's probably accurate. Who are you going to throw in front of them? Like Louisville, UNC, maybe? I don't know. They're all kind of in that tier 2 bunch. Essentially, here's what he's telling you about Miami, and it is put up or shut up time for Mario Cristobal. I asked a question on Twitter today about Miami and certainly got a bunch of lame brain Miami fans that couldn't answer that. And I will say the Miami folks here on YouTube are much better. And you guys that are watching this, I know that you'll at least respond with some positive comments here, or it won't tell me that I'm just rent-free living. So anyway, back to what we were talking about. Miami at number 4 is essentially like, hey, the rest of this conference absolutely sucks. Okay. And so that considered, those thoughts in mind, you need to step up to the plate, and you need to play like you belong here. You cannot lose to the Georgia Techs and the Dukes and the SMUs and the Louisvilles and the other bad programs in this conference. You have to stop that. You have to stop being trash. You are a top 4 program, even though you've lost back-to-back seasons where you've had 6 and 7 losses respectively. you have to stop being crap. You've recruited better than anyone else in this conference over the last 3 years. There's no doubt about that. They've been ahead of Clemson in the last 2 years. Clemson was ahead the year before, but they've recruited better than Florida State. They've recruited better than anyone else besides Clemson that 1 year. You've got to stop sucking on the field. You've got to stop losing to teams that you're better than, that you're more talented than. You cannot go out and lay eggs against awful teams like Middle Tennessee State, who end up firing their coach. You cannot end up laying eggs to Georgia Tech. You can't lose embarrassingly when you have the talent that Miami has. It's one thing to lose to Florida State or to lose to Clemson or to lose to even Louisville, who went to the ACC championship, NC State. But when you're losing these other games that Miami continues to lose over and over and over again, even UNC was not a good team last year. You have to finally get over that hump if you're Miami. And Pate's a lot nicer when he says it, right? Like Pate's, kind of playing to a certain audience, right? Like he doesn't go in on teams. He doesn't call out you watch his over-under win totals talking about Florida. Like he said, we're praying for them, right? Like he wasn't negative about it. He just said, we're praying for them. And that's what I think he's basically doing here with Miami. He's being nice in the way that he's saying it. But if you read between the lines, he's saying, Miami, you guys have sucked, and you need to stop doing that. You need to get better because this conference is dog crap. Florida State's good. Clemson's good. NC State's good, average to above average. UNC, Louisville, okay teams. Next up after that, he had SMU, who just came from a group of 5 conference. He had SMU ahead of everyone else. And so the challenge for Miami is, hey, when are you finally going to do it? You've got a better opportunity this year than you've had in a long time. Get it done. I asked Miami fans this on Twitter, and this is not a troll. This is not a joke. I think Miami wins that opening game against Florida in the Swamp. But here's my question. We all know that if and when Florida loses that game, Florida fans are going to be coming for Billy Napier's head. Like that will be the end of it. They will be done with him. And the idea will be, hey, if he can't beat Miami, who else is he going to beat? We're done. This is over. Napier will end up getting fired, I believe, if he loses to Miami. Unless he goes on some kind of crazy runs, beats a bunch of SEC teams, upsets Florida State at the end. I think Miami's winning that game, and I think it's going to be one of the last games that Billy Napier coaches. But what if the opposite happens? What if the Florida team that has had back-to-back losing seasons, 7 loss seasons, Florida, who is everyone's punching bag, has a 5.5 win total, going to get absolutely clobbered again this year, lost to Arkansas last year, lost to Vandy the year before, just not a good team at all. What if Mario loses that game? Like, if you're a Miami fan, how worried are you at that point? Right? Now, again, same thing for Miami, right? They could go out and win 10 games. Maybe they just drop the FSU game too, and they win 10 games and go to a great bowl or maybe even backdoor their way into the playoff. I don't know. But if you lose that game against Florida, after everything Florida's been through the last couple of years, if you're a Miami fan, and I know several of you watch, this is not a shot. What are your thoughts if you lose that game to Florida? Now, I don't think you do. I think you win that game. We haven't seen Cam Ward play yet. We haven't seen what Miami's playmakers are going to look like in that game. At Miami's secondary, the questions that are there. Florida looked competent at times in the back half of last year. I still don't think they're good. I still think you guys are going to win, Miami. But, man, if you're a top 3-4 team in the ACC, you can't lose to Florida. You absolutely cannot. Louisville doesn't lose to Florida next year. UNC doesn't lose to Florida next year. I'm not sure SMU loses to Florida. And then I know Florida State, Clemson, and NC State take care of business. So Miami, is this finally going to be the year that you step up and do it? I don't know. What happens if you don't? What happens, Miami fans, if you lose that game in the Swamp? That's something that I think is really telling. And that's my big thought on what Pate had to say about Miami. Miami's in a position to finally do good things. They just haven't done it yet. And if they can finally get over the hump and do it this year, then I think we'll all kind of take our foot off of your necks and stop giving you such a hard time because you've said that you were going to do it for the last 20 years. Hey, guys, I appreciate you for tuning in. Let me know your thoughts down in the comments on any or all of this. I appreciate you guys for all the support. We'll talk to you soon. Go Noles.